Today, our sewing project is a shoe bag so that we can keep our precious shoes clean. And let's start. So, the first thing to do is make sure that you fold the fabric, or there are two layers of fabric because we're going to get the top and the bottom of the shoe bag. So, you can just position your shoes according to your liking. Next is get a ruler and make sure that the base of the ruler is aligned with the edge of the fabric. So the purpose of this is so that you can have a straight line or a perpendicular line. Now we're going to get the height and width. This line is the height of the shoe bag, and next would be the width. So depending on your preference, it's up to you how big you want the shoe bag to be. So in my case, I just put an extra inch on both sides. And then we're going to clip the fabric because we're going to slash it or cut it. Now we're going to create a curve on the corners. Now you can freehand it, but if you have a French curve ruler, you can just use that. And you're going to cut the corner, so make sure that it is curved. It's time to mark the seam allowance. So earlier when I was making the top and bottom part of the fabric or the shoe organizer, I put into consideration the seam allowance so that I can just mark it after I cut it. It's time to mark the base or the bottom part of the shoe bag. So I normally just mark it um, like an inch above before the start of the curve. So it's up to you. This will also be the beginning of the zipper. So from the base, it will go up and then across and then going down, connecting to the other mark. So what I'm doing right now is marking or measuring the top part of the shoe bag. So this is where the zipper will be added because for the base, you won't need to put a zipper. So this is the measurement of the top part of the shoe bag. So in my case, it is 32 and 4/8 of an inch. And then now I'm going to measure the base or the bottom part of the shoe bag. And you can write it on a piece of paper in my case, since I'm doing this for this training only. So I'm just gonna write it on the shoe bag. So my bottom is 14 and 3/8 of an inch. Now you will be needing to add a seam allowance because you will be connecting the top and the bottom part. So you just add 1 inch for the top part and 1 inch for the bottom part. And now we are going to get the length of the top part and of the bottom part. Please take note that there are two layers of fabric in this one. So you only cut or slash the top part. Unclip the extra fabric and then put it aside. So again, there are two layers. So the bottom layer is going to be the top part of your shoe organizer or shoe bag. So don't forget to indicate so that you will know. It's time to cut it in half because this is where you will place the zipper. And then measure the zipper, how long you want it to be. Give it extra inches on both ends so that you won't have a hard time attaching it. And then you cut it. And then place the correct side of the fabric to the correct side of the zipper. So right side to right side together. And then you will sew it. Again, right side to right side should be facing together. And then you will sew it just close to the teeth of the zipper. After the first stitch, you can trim the extra threads, and then you can fold the fabric to hide the first stitch. And then you will do another stitch, which is a top stitch on the correct side of the fabric. And we are going to do the second stitch so that we can secure the fabric on the zipper. And you are done. You can do that to the other side. So same process so that we can attach the fabric to the zipper. And we are done with the top part of the shoe bag. We have attached the fabric to the zipper, and we're going to cut the edges or the extra zipper on each side. We are now going to attach the zipper head. So what you need to do is you start first by inserting the part of the zipper head wherein there is that divider in the middle, because that will separate the zipper, and then once it passes through, it will close the zipper. And we're now going to attach or sew the bottom part of the shoe bag or shoe organizer. So it will be right side to right side as well. So correct side of the fabric to the correct side of the fabric is how we're going to sew it. Again, sew right side to right side. So the top and bottom part of the shoe bag has been sewn together already. So again, right side to right side. And all you need to do next is to cut the extra fabric in the seam allowance. For the bias tape, I'm going to use a ribbon. So this is a weaved ribbon and it's very sturdy. All you have to do is just cut a piece of the ribbon that is a bit longer than the width or height rather of the side of the shoe bag. So you need two pieces. So you can align the ribbon to the seam allowance or to the seam line, and then just 2/8 of an inch away from the seam line, you can start your stitch. Turn it upside down and then fold your ribbon or bias tape to cover the other side of your seam allowance. After you folded it, you can turn it upside down again. So as you can see, it now covers the rough edges of your seam allowance, and you can start sewing it again so that you can close the seam allowance. We have covered the seam allowance, and all you need to do next is to cut the extra bias tape or the ribbon, and then you can do this to the other side again. Now that you have the side of the shoe bag ready, you can now place it to the top or bottom part of the shoe bag. Now, the top and bottom have the same measurement, so it can either be the top or the bottom. It doesn't really matter. So right now, just position the seam of the side of the shoe bag to the top or bottom part of the fabric. So those are the measurements wherein you will put the seam of the side of the shoe bag. It's going to be right side to right side. So right side of the fabric should be facing the right side of the other fabric. So just make sure to position it in the seam line. Again, right side of the fabric to the right side of the other fabric, and then you start sewing. Now, I would suggest that if you want to be accurate, you can just pin it so that it will stay in place. But I don't have time for this. So I'll just sew it right away. So there may be extra inch when we finish, but we'll see. We have the same measurement, so it should be accurate as long as you are sewing it right. We are now done sewing the top part of the shoe bag to the side of the shoe bag. So that's how it looks. And we're going to use a ribbon again to cover the seams or the extra seams or extra fabric during the sewing. This is so that the rough edges will be covered. So it's the same process with the previous one that we did, wherein we cover the rough edges with the ribbon. So start first on the other side and then flip the bias tape to the other side and then sew again so that you will cover the rough edges. So you will do this to this part and also to the other part as soon as we're done sewing the other side. We are now going to flip the bias tape to the other side so that it will cover the rough edges. And then we're going to sew it so that the rough edges will be covered. And we have covered the rough edges. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to sew the side of the shoe bag to the bottom part of the shoe bag. And so basically it's the same process since it has the same measurement as the top and bottom of the shoe bag. You can also test the shoe bag, see if the shoes will fit, which it will fit because I measured this earlier. So that's how the shoes will be positioned. And then when you cover it, it will be sealed. Now, it doesn't have the bottom or the top part because we have yet to sew it. But that's going to be the next step. And we have now attached or sewn the top part or bottom part of the shoe bag. It can now cover your shoes. So that's how it looks. Now you can actually add a handle if you don't want to be carrying the bag uncomfortably, if there's such a word. And so we're going to add a handle. Let's take another look as to how we position the shoes, or how it will be positioned inside the shoe bag. Nice. So as you can see, it's big. You can add more stuff in it aside from your shoes. And the next step is we're going to add a handle. So first thing to do is fold the bottom part of the shoe bag in half. This is so that you can place the handle at the center. Once you've marked the placement of the handle, you can now measure it. You can measure how long you want it to be. And again, you're placing the handle at the back of the shoe bag. Okay, we get the length of the handle, and then you cut it. It's up to you how wide you want the handle to be. So in my case, probably just an inch or an inch and a half. But again, it's up to you how wide you want it to be. And we're now going to sew it. Now that it has been sewn, just trim the extra fabric. Now using a threader, you can pinch the other end of the handle. You can lock it, and then you press it in. You're pressing inside the threader so that you can turn the handle inside out, and the rough edges or stitch will be hidden inside. Once it is turned inside out, you can now remove the threader, and then you can just close the either end or both ends of the handle so that it will be secured properly. So just press it in so that the rough edges will be inside, and then you can sew it so that it will be closed. You can now position the handle at the back of the shoe bag, and then you can sew it after. We're now going to sew the handle to the back of the shoe bag so that it will be secured and you can carry your shoe bag around comfortably. The handle is now attached. We're just going to cut the threads. And this is our sewing project shoe organizer or shoe bag. Now, this is a fun project if you're just learning or new to sewing, and it's very useful, this kind of project, because it cannot just be used as a shoe organizer. You can put so much stuff, and if you get better at sewing, you can use the same process in making a backpack. If you want to make a backpack, you can also make a duffel bag, so on and so forth. There are so many things that you can do with this kind of project. Imagination is only your limit. This is Fred, by the way, of Sewing Projects Fred, and until next time.